Hi folks, welcome to a bit of an industry roundup from this week's newsletter.
This week we're talking about first impressions for professionals in terms of job applications. There's a link below to an article that we put together to just with a few tips for like easy little things that they can fix up.
Yes, and there was actually a comment from Tanya, I believe, talking about the employers and the role they play in being professional in the whole recruitment process. It was pretty well written. I thought there's a lot of good stuff in there. So check out my response to that as well. Indeed, we do have an article for employers about writing job ads.
Yes.
We did a video on this last week, and there is a number of ways that employers can live the employer of choice model. Onboarding with Good Life.
Yeah, Tani Donkin, who's a regional fitness director of Good Life, did a Facebook Live session, info session style, just to run through onboarding of trainers. I think it was aimed more at people looking at coming on board Good Life, but it's a really good sneak peek for anyone to listen into what Good Life take their new recruits through.
Yeah, I thought it was great. You don't often see that sort of in-depth onboarding being outlined in a public forum.
Yeah, no, she's done a great job, especially with the live video, and yeah, goes through it all pretty thoroughly. So good for professionals and employers to check out.
Yeah, nice one. One of the things I saw last week was a podcast interview between Mel Tempest and Jamie Logue of Genesis and the Coaching Zone.
Yeah.
And it talked about 12-week challenges. They're pretty popular these days, and Jamie goes into some great detail on how you can make the most from your 12-week programs, including the sort of things that you need to be aware of when you're starting out.
Great. That's a video podcast, or it's just audio?
Just audio podcast. And Jim Owners Network, we'll have the link below.
King of Spin.
King of Spin. This was an article that came up on Facebook on my feed, and it stood out for two reasons. One of them is because it's a great insight into how a fitness professional can really build an audience and become quite a big part of everyone's lives that's involved in those classes. He's got a huge following, this guy Carl. And the other reason I found it really interesting is because his partner in New York is an Australian who happened to be one of our first FitRec professionals.
Very exciting. He was similar, I think, who was very good at getting a big following for his group exercise classes.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Even the references he had from employers saying how many people were kind of attending his classes and things like that.
Yeah, right. The other things in relation to those connections, I saw a TED Talk. We've given a link to that in the notes below about what makes a good life. What do you think people say makes a good life?
Yeah, it's usually always about connection and doing for others more than yourself.
No, yeah, you're pretty close too, actually. So, while the guy in the study was saying a lot of people in interviews spoke about money and fame, it turns out that in this study that's gone over 75 years following guys from teenagers, it's the connections they had in their life that determined the quality of life towards the end of years. And I think it ties in with that King of Spin thing in that, in the fitness industry, we do provide an opportunity for people to have that third space, they call it.
Yeah.
And, we are contributing a valuable amount to people's well-being.
Definitely. Was that in the article for that TED Talk is it a Tony Robbins quote? It's like your quality of life is measured by the quality of your relationships.
I don't know.
Or something similar to that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where did I see that? Was that related
it sounds
to
like a good one as well. Marietta speaks this week about applying for a job reapplying for an old job. Yeah. It was a job she had, the business changed hands, and so she needed to reapply. And she talks about their request for registration.
Yeah. And pretty standard thing that's happened to a lot of people when they get asked for rego. It's the traditional standard to Fitness Australia or Physical Activity Australia. And because it's sort of like a checklist system, a lot of these recruiting managers have, it's quite rigid. So I think once she mentioned FitRec, she had a little bit of, not necessarily pushback, but just the person hadn't heard of it, and she had to kind of dig up a few references of articles and things to convince her to look into it further.
Yes, exactly. Marietta helped provide that education, referring to an Australian Fitness Network article on that included a snippet from our recent success with the Australian Capital Territory, that state government recognising FitRec as one of their registration providers. So I think with all of these, as Becky says, it's not uncommon for employers to be unaware, and as Marietta says in her note, that you can't assume that all employers are up to date with all the latest information. We do have a letter that people can share with employers that is, it does talk about FitRec, how FitRec works, and also everyone's right as mandated by the Fair Work Act to choose who they register with if they register at all.
Yep.
Yeah. Featured jobs.
Yep, brand new club opening for Good Life in South Australia West Lakes. So they're looking for personal trainers. I think the facility is opening sometime next month, so everything's going to be brand new. Lots of new members, I'm sure, will be rushing in, so good chance to get in there early if you're a trainer. PT or strength coach needed in Bowen Hills and Queensland for Anytime Fitness. Personal trainers in Camberwell, Victoria for Snap. So that ad has only got maybe a week or so left, so it's time to apply if you've seen it and have any sort of interest, because that one will be closing soon.
Beautiful. Perfect. That's all we've got for this week. I will leave you with a quote. This week's quote is, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." So don't take all on board. Be calm. Cheers.